So enough about me. The reason I wanted to get you on here, it's we're both on the Blundell Network. You've helped me a great deal in building this thing out. For the listeners at home, finally, as we get around to the reintroduction of Todd is the TODDCast Podcast. You've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
You're the afternoon and the 6 o'clock rock report guy and all the rest of it at CFox with Danger. You run the rest of the resume, but how did the TODDCast Podcast come about? And if you've told this 1,000 times, I'm sorry. Let's just
I
want to learn a little bit on the TODDCast Podcast side of it, and and people can actually listen to a pro for once.
Yeah. Wow. The pressure now. Yeah. I mean, it was literally one of those, like you said, I was the afternoon guy and the rock report host, which was a music intensive interview, acoustic performances and stuff from 6 till 7, Monday to Friday, from everybody. Like, man, it was awesome. Foo Fighters and Korn and, Slipknot and rock stations. So think that vein. And we pretty much had everybody roll through that studio. So when I got let go from that radio station, thankfully I was probably 85-90% of the time I was the guy booking those bands for CFox. So I knew the music labels. I knew like production houses and everything else, right? So when I got let go, I had all this because I'd been there for 15 years and I had I think it was 10 months of severance, but full pay. I had, every 2 weeks, it was just like I was working at the radio station, but I wasn't. I was just making the money. So, maybe a few months into the severance, a really good friend of mine named Paul Meehan, who is part owner in Me and Lewis, an advertising firm here in Vancouver, one in Toronto, one in London, England as well. He said to me, does it really need to be radio? Do you need to go back to radio? Like maybe podcasting's your thing. You've hosted how many events in this city? How many people do you know that own, a property or manage something, a GM or whatever, get them to sponsor your sorry ass. And maybe you could just start a podcast and make money that way.
And that's got to be a weird feeling because when you're a mechanic, you get let go and you want to just go be a mechanic somewhere else.
Right.
And when you're when you're a doctor, you just go and open a new doctor's office. When you're an athlete, you go into coaching or you go into something like that. Yeah. But when you're in radio, as long as you are, and as long as you were, and with the reputation that you had and with the listener base, it's a hit on the ego because you're like, well, sure, I work for CFox, but you probably own those listeners, right? From 3 to 6 or 2 to 6. You consider them your babies, right? These are the people that tune in to listen to you every day. I mean, I would tune in to listen to you guys every day. Right. Just like someone would tune in to listen to the morning show, or there's certain shows that people like, whatever it is. Yeah. So you consider them yours, then they get them taken away from you. And then you're like, well, I need to get back on radio right now because I got to get them back and they're going to come follow me. And was that a feeling, or was it just like, no, I'm going to go to podcasting and it's going to go this way?
Yeah, no, not really. Like if anything, I kind of was like, I was just shocked. First off, I mean, I was easily the number one afternoon show in the city. Outperformed everything, all my expectations, like everything that they wanted me to do, I did, and then some. Went to sales meetings that I didn't need to go to. If I need, hey, if you need me to be at a golf tournament or whatever to push a client over the edge to, advertise with us, I was one of those like open door policy, I was one of those employees, right?
Yeah.
So I was really surprised, but no, I never really thought like I want to get those. I just was like, at the time it was like, I think a 1 or a 2 year old and a 4 year old and a 5 year old. It's like something like that. 1 and 4 or 2 and 5. So I had little kids and I was like, well, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to chill, relax, because it happened in June for me. So I was like, okay, well, after summer, I'll try to make the move or whatever. But by the time after summer rolled around, that's when Paul came into the picture and was like, explore the idea. And I'm like, okay, so what would that kind of look like? He's like, I don't know, like go home and think about the businesses that, I want you to go home and I want you to think of 10 businesses that personally that would maybe give you $200, $300, $400, $500, $1,000 a month. Because if you can get 10 sponsors on at $400 each, that's suddenly $4,000 coming into your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, I'm like, okay, suddenly, you know, cause I'm like, well, I can't, like, who's going to give me that much money or whatever. And as soon as he said that, I was like, oh, okay, well, that like $100 a week to sponsor me. Can you do that? Okay. If I had a business and it was doing well, and a friend of mine that had a pretty good following already that you knew was going to put out a good product.
Yeah.
And he said to you, hey man, would you give me $10 a day? Would you give me $300 a month? Would you give me $100 a week? Would you give me $400 a month to, you know, promo your X company on my brand new podcast? I would say yes every day of the week.
Yeah. And I would imagine, like, how many years have you been doing it now?
6.
So 6. I would imagine 6 years ago, obviously 6 years ago, podcasting was way new.
Oh,
I mean, it was still, I mean, satellite radio added a thing, you know, it kind of made it more so.
Yeah.
Like more,
much different than
much more different.
Yeah,
but
much different.
6 years ago, trying to go get money from somebody and all the rest of it. You want me to sponsor you? Why? Or how? What is this thing you have? Oh, well, I'm just gonna, I'm doing a show that's not on radio, and you have to,
right.
You have to just believe in me. And that would have been a pretty hard sell, but also maybe easier to get money then too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was just more a little bit, it was probably a bit of both, you know, like, thankfully I had the namesake in the city. It's not like I could have left Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to stay here because everybody knows me as the guy from CFox, or knew me as that. Now they know me as the Toddcast, thankfully. I've rebranded, which was probably the hardest thing to do. You know, it's not like the podcast stretched my abilities as a broadcaster. It's something that I'd done for 20 years on terrestrial radio, where there's no chance to fuck up. You can't be like, you know, like for me, if I do an intro to a podcast and I didn't quite like the way I delivered it, I'll just do it again.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that luxury in live radio. So, you know, I didn't feel like the only thing that really stretched my abilities was the back end of what we do, what is done to make money with a podcast. It was that, like, how do I write proposals? How do I put together a sponsorship deck? You know, how do I market this and market it correctly, not piss off the guests? Because I've done that over the years. I've tweaked the way I promo my podcasts, completely different than year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, probably. Overkill on the @mentions. I've had people that I know in industry that I've had on as guests, and after I've had them on, they've unfollowed me and blocked me on social media because I mentioned them so many times.
Gotcha.
And I'm thinking I'm doing that. Well, I'm doing it because I want people to go to your page and like you, and you've blocked me. You've unfollowed me because I'm being uber supportive of your brand. Like, to me, it took a while to understand, like, okay, it doesn't need to be quite hit them over the head with the @mentions. Do it, once a day, twice a day kind of thing, whatever. Make sure they're separated, still pound the shit out of that episode to get people to listen to it. But maybe that's where you start to hashtag certain things and topics that relate.
Well, the social thing must be like, I mean, you were the first on it as far as I could see, as far as just the job you were doing and that you continue to do on Twitter and all the rest of it, which, is still a nightmare of mine to just try to keep up to it all. And the social media side of it is like, it's
the bane of my existence, man.
It's unbelievable.
Thanks for stopping by, friends, to the Brenton on Tour podcast channel on YouTube. Coffee, music, travel, life, all of those things. One page, lots of guests, lots of chatter. We talk about all of it. If you like it, subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment. I'll get back to you. Thanks, friends. See you next time.